Welcome to another Senior Curriculum Inspiration, proudly supported by Texas Instruments Australia. My name is Peter Fox and I'll be your host for this session today. The Senior Curriculum Inspiration series is designed to help teachers develop strategies in the effective use of Texas Instruments calculators through carefully selected mathematics activities available for free from the Texas Instruments Australia website. Today we're looking at transformations of functions. Today's activity uses something called a group file. The idea of this is that the focus is on transformations. Now, whilst all the data that's been collected for the group file was done using a motion sensor, in this activity we simply want students to make use of the data. So, once you've transferred that file from the website onto your computer, you can use the free TI-Connect software to simply drag and drop it onto your calculator. The instructions on how to do that are included in the teacher notes. I've loaded this file onto my emulator, and to retrieve a group file, I press second and plus, which is our memory option, navigate down to group, and then across to ungroup. Your calculator will automatically locate it there once you've dragged and dropped that file onto your handheld. I'll press enter. Now, the calculator will warn me that it's going to overwrite some of the things that are already on my calculator. Most of these things are lists, so I'm going to select option number 3 to overwrite all the values in those lists. You can see at the top of my screen there's Prob 1, Prob 2, they're programs. Whilst they're not essential, they actually make the whole task a little bit more streamlined. So once I've finished there, I can just quit out of that. And on the student handout, it says to run program number 1, or problem number 1, for the first set of questions. The first set of questions are about parabolas. So I select problem 1, press enter. Doesn't look like it's done much. But let's have a look at the y equals editor. It's dropped an equation in there. You may also notice that plot 1 has been switched on. And also, if I press graph, I have my y equals x squared graph displayed on the screen. The screen or window setup has been designed to suit a selection of the data, and the data is already displayed. So all of that is automatic when the students run program 1. Again, the focus here is on the transformation of functions. Now, in the first set of questions on this particular problem, it asks the students to do a reflection. Well, at least it says, let's try putting a negative sign in front of our function. Now, we don't edit y1. We apply our transformations to y1. So I'll press the negative sign, and there's a couple of ways I can grab graph 1. I'm going to press alpha, F4, select option 1, press enter, and now my new graph will display in red. Down the bottom of the screen we can see that there's an inverted parabola, or rather a reflection in the x-axis. What we want students to understand from that transformation is if we attach a negative value to all of our current y values, then it creates a reflection in the x-axis. The next thing it asks students to do is translate that graph upwards and suggest to try different values for the parameter k. I'm going to try a 1, and I'll press graph. You can see I've done this before. Students, of course, can see the scale on the axes if they choose to go into the window settings. The other thing I want to show you, because my emulator is running very fast, but that's been on purpose. What the program does, in addition to setting everything up, is if I go into the window settings and scroll down to this X-Res option, that's X resolution, by changing it away from 1, which is the highest resolution, to a 3, it means my graphs will be produced a lot faster. So if you're wondering why they're produced fast, it's not a time zone thing, it's simply my X resolution. The next thing we're asked to do is perform some dilations on our functions. You can see I've got an overstrike cursor. I'll need to change that to an insert cursor, and I'm going to take a guess at 4.5. I'll press the graph option again, and you can see that it fits pretty well. There's some useful tips in there for the students, and that is, what if I want to see a closer look at this graph? So, if I choose the zoom option, I'm going to choose zoom box. That gives me a cursor which I can move using the arrow keys on the keypad, and I'm going to move across, and I'm interested to see how close this graph actually models the data that's being collected. And remembering this is a genuine ball bounce collected using a basketball and a CBR2 connected to the calculator. So whilst my graph looked pretty good from before, I can see I could make some minor improvements. And here's where the students go back and make some edits. They might decide that they need to dilate that a little bit more or a little bit less. I'm going to change mine to 4.3. Press graph, and that's pretty good. I'll take that one. Now you're thinking, do I have to run that program again? Nope. There's another little trick it suggests to students. If I press zoom, go across to memory, and choose option 1, that zoom previous, it'll go back to the window settings that the program set up in the first place. The next one students do is model the second function. Now, it's suggested that they use Y3, so in other words, we'll build up a set of curves. Now, rather than simply guess this time, there's some more tips that the students receive. If I press the trace key, I'll trace along my plot, and I can see that the turning point is located about 0.9, 0.74 in the Y direction. Now, if I had a really good memory, I'd remember those, but another little trick or tip, I'm going to come down to here. I'm going to take a guess at negative 4.3 again. I know a little bit of physics. I'm going to put some my function first. That's y1. And let's translate that function a little. Now, if I remembered that value, too bad I didn't, but I can press second, recall, X, press enter, and it's recorded the value that was displayed on the screen earlier. Now for my vertical translation, I'll just recall this corresponding Y value, and now we'll see how we did. It's not too bad, remembering that this is real data, so that the peak of the parabola may not have actually been detected. It might have occurred between data collection points. So the students can then once again fine-tune those values. All right, once students are finished with that one, they can quit out of there, press the program button, go to problem number 2, run that one. Again, it just displays a 3 on the screen. My old equations are still there just in case I wanted to use them again, but you can see it's dropped a sine x. I'm not particularly concerned about the function at this stage. I'm focusing on the transformations. This time, the data is being collected for a pendulum. I can see a part of my graph. Sadly, it looks a bit like a parabola. That's because of the window settings. But again, this time it suggests let's start with a dilation. So I'm going to take a guess at 0.25 times my variable, and I'm getting my variable back a different way this time just to show you that there's many ways you can do this. And then I'll press graph. And that's looking a little bit better, still nothing like the model of my function. I need to translate my function upwards, parallel to the y-axis. So let's put a plus something in. I'm going to put a plus 0.4 in just as a rough guess and press graph again. And it's looking a little better. Probably need to do a dilation parallel to the x-axis now. Students should know that that sort of a dilation sits in here. So I'll put my insert option in there, and let's try a 3.5 times x. And this is just a rough guess. Notice I'm not looking at calculating the period of the function. All I'm doing is looking at performing a dilation parallel to the x-axis. And I can see it's looking a little bit better. Now I need to translate my graph, and this is an interesting one. I can translate it left or right. Now, once again, students could do a trace. I'm just going to take a rough guess again. Again, I need to make sure I've got my insert character on. Now, I'm going to put some brackets in here. Almost missed it. And make sure you close off that bracket. That's the most common mistake that students make. And we're getting pretty close. Remembering all of these have just been from estimates. Now it's time for students to refine that graph to get a better model for the function. But again, we haven't looked at what the equation is really doing in terms of, oh, this is a trigonometric function. No, it's an image, if you like, that we're trying to match. So, the last one, problem number 3. Notice it's changed our function again. It's still using plot 1. Rest assured, it's set the window dimensions up correct, and you can see each time the primitive function or the original function is drawn in light grey so students can see where they've come from. We can see this time we probably need to do a reflection in the y-axis. So we'll go back into here and we'll bring up y1 and we'll start with a negative x. So I've reflected it the correct way. I now need to do some dilations and transformations on this one. I'm going to take another rough guess. And maybe do one more dilation. And that's looking pretty good. And of course, students could, if they wanted to, determine how close they were to any given point by looking at the value of y and tracing it, or by substituting it into their function. So, just recapping, we've done quadratics, trigonometric functions, and exponentials, but in each and every case, we've looked at it as a transformation of a function. So, from this activity, the aim is for students to understand what does it mean if we have 2 times f of x, or f of negative x, or f of x minus 3, or f of x then minus 3, if that makes sense. Don't forget to download the activity from the Texas Instruments Australia website. Thanks for joining us in this curriculum inspiration, and hopefully we'll catch you on the next one.